Okay guys, welcome to today's video. Today's video is on a alternator replacement on a Skoda Superb 2 litre. Quite common in these. So the reason it's getting replaced for today is it's not charging the battery. Okay, so this one came with a dead battery. I've got it started. I've got my multimeter here set to volts, and I'm just going to check the charge rate. Positive to positive, negative to negative. And you'll see that that's only charging at 11.41 volts. Now that should be charging at least 2 volts above battery voltage. So to me that indicates that the alternator is not charging the battery correctly. Now I'm going to put it under load here, and usually if an alternator is okay, it will increase and accommodate for that load change. But I would suspect this one's going to drop. So I'll put everything under load now. That's the blower motor, the lights, indicators, and as you can see, it's dropped away down beyond 10. So this battery wouldn't last too long then. As you can see, okay, knock her off. So that's the reason why it's getting replaced. You know, the main function of an alternator is once the car gets started up, the battery starts the car. Once the car gets started up, the alternator takes over and controls all your electrical consumables, and that includes recharging the battery. So if the alternator is not doing its job right, not only will it not be charging the battery, but it could give a lot of other electrical issues as well, which this one is doing. Okay, so I'm going to go through the whole process and how to do this. I'll show you the tools that are required. So yes, bear with me. So before you start the job, it's always good practice then to disconnect the battery. I'm not sure if you can see that, sorry. You can see battery positive, take off the 10 mil, wiggle that terminal off. Okay. Then I'm going to use this battery charger, positive to positive, black to negative. I'll turn my meter off because we're not going to use that, but we will once it's finished because we need to check the charge rate, and then just turn the battery charger on. So hopefully by the end of this job our battery's nice and charged up. Okay, so typically on these 2 litre VAG engines, which is basically Volkswagen, Audi, Seat or Skoda, these newer engines, the alternators are basically just here. You can see this top one here. Okay, now to get at that, as you can see, would be far too difficult from the top. So these alternators are done from the bottom. We also have to remove, if it has air conditioning, the air conditioning pump. Okay, so some basic tools you're going to need to complete this job is you're going to need, well, I like to use a 3/8 gun, a torch, 10 mil spanner, power spanner to remove the alternator fan belt and the tensioner. You need 2 torques to take off the under tray, 25 and a 40. 2 sockets, 10 mil and a 13 mil. Ratchet, extension bar, pry bar, some gloves. Okay, now there is another wee thing, but I'm going to have to use a drill bit for it, so I will show you that, and it's on the tensioner to hold the tensioner in place while I take it off. So that's the basic common tools that we will use here. It's a pretty easy enough job, anyone could do it. So I'm going to get it up and get the under tray off, and then we'll continue with the video. Okay guys, so we can now see the air conditioning pumps here. The tensioner is just here. That's a 16 mil socket. The alternator is just here. Okay. And the reason why you disconnect the battery is round the back of the alternator you have a 13 mil nut which has the lathe wire going directly from the alternator to the battery. That needs disconnected, and there'll also be an electrical switch we need to take off also. Okay, so the process I'm going to do here is I'm going to take off the fan belt with the 16 mil spanner up here, take that off. I'm going to take off the aircon pump with 3 13 mil bolts, and then I'm going to take off the alternator with another 2 13 mil bolts and use my pry bar to pry it off. Okay, so just bear with me. Okay, so all you do then is pull the tensioner towards you, and that slackens the fan belt. Okay, we'll just take the fan belt off. Always make sure you know the routing. This one's pretty simple, but draw it down on a page or piece of paper if you don't know. And that's the fan belt off. Okay, now you'll sort of see we have a tensioner bolt here to take out, which is a 10 multi-spline, but to get that out we need to pull this out of the way like so. Okay, and we need to hold that in place, and there's a wee pin just goes in up here, which we will put in to hold this tensioner up here out of the way. Okay, rather than sit here, we want to hold this tensioner here. So you can see I've got a drill bit holding that in place, and our M10 is just right here, which is a multi-spline, and this will take off the fan belt tensioner. So you have one here and you have one up over here which you can't see. Okay guys, so that's the tensioner out. As you can see, I'm just holding that in place with a drill bit. Okay, I don't have my wee pin. So now you have access to your alternator bolt at the top and the alternator bolt at the bottom, and I'll just have to take this aircon pump out. You can see 113 here, there's one right there at the top, and there's one just behind this pipe, just in over here, as you can see. Okay, so I'm going to take all of them off. I'll move the aircon out of the way, so then I can remove the alternator down here. Now these alternators also have a clutch pulley on them, so check a clutch pulley, make sure they're not seized, they're replaceable. Okay. Okay, so I'm just about to take out the alternator. As you can see, I've got the aircon pump removed. It will sort of sit out of the way for you, and all you have to do then is get your pry bar in to wedge the alternator out. It may take a wee bit of wiggling. Okay, so the alternator is now ready to come out. And we'll just take this down, out this space here. I'll just have to take off the electrical connector off the back. Okay guys, so now you can see I've got the alternator out. Here I have the multi-plug that I needed to disconnect. Anytime you're disconnecting a multi-plug, push the multi-plug in, hold the notch and pull it back. Okay, because you see a lot of people break these, and that's the correct way to take them off. Alright, you also see here, which is the main feed wire coming from the battery, alright, or to the battery. Okay, so I had to remove that also. There's a 13mm nut on the back of that. Now unfortunately this alternator was a wee bit bigger than the last one that I did. This one was 180 amp, the last one was only 120 amp, so it was bigger. It was a bit difficult to get out this space. So what I had to do was support the engine. Now I have a tall axle stand, you can use a jack, and I had to remove the, you'll just see the bolts up here, the two top 18mm engine mount bolts. Okay, I'm not allowed the engine to drop down ever so slightly, so I could take the alternator out. Now I've got the alternator here on the bench, as you can see. Now sometimes you can get these alternators reconditioned if you know an electrical place that does that. But as I say, you can also replace these clutch pulleys on them. Okay. And around the back you can see where the electrical connector was and the 13mm. Alright. Now also on this alternator there was also a I'm trying to find it, which went in here, sorry. This went in here, and there was a wire on here with an 8mm nut. So remember to take off the 8mm nut so the wires don't stay connected to it. Okay. Now also as well is why the alternators are so hard to get off is because of these lobes here. These should be, now this one's seized, but these should be able to come back and forth. On a new one, they're more further over this way. So whenever you tighten a new one up, it'll pull it down to the same distance here. Okay, so it may take a wee while, but make sure that these lobes pull through. Okay. So apart from that, that's the alternator out. All I have to do now is rebuild this in reverse order and then retest the system. Okay, so that's the new alternator installed here. The fan belt's back on, the aircon pump's back on, the electrical connectors on the back of the alternator, along with the main feed wire from the battery. So now all we have to do is test the electrical load under load and make sure it's charging. Okay, so that's everything built back up, and we're just going to carry out the same test again. We'll start it up, we'll make sure that it's charging around 14.6 volts, which is 2 volts above battery voltage. Then we'll put a load onto it, and it should still stay 2 volts above battery voltage. Okay, so start her up. So always calibrate your meter by touching them together. Goes to 0, red to red, black to black, and now you can see. Okay, so I just wanted to end this video on an exploded view of the alternator, okay, and what it actually looks like. So you can see you have your rectifier, your rear casing, the stator, which includes your 3-phase windings, your voltage regulator, and then your rotor. Okay, on your rotor you have your 2 slip rings. Okay, and basically how an alternator would work would be your slip rings are energized with a small voltage from the battery. Okay, and you've got these big magnets, north to south pole, okay, which also has an iron coil inside it, wound with copper wire. Okay, and that gets energized, and basically that spins with the magnets inside it, and it spins inside this stator here. Okay, and you can see the 3-phase windings are all joined together by iron core. It spins around in here, and what it does then is it generates an electrical field. Because it's 3-phase, it generates 3 electrical fields. Basically the rectifier rectifies it from AC to DC. Okay, and the voltage regulator just regulates the voltage output then, you know. If basically what it does then is, if your alternator needs to produce more juice, it'll basically it'll energize the rotor that wee bit more, or vice versa. So that's what an alternator looks like stripped down. So listen, I hope you enjoyed this video on an alternator removal and replacement. Wee bit of knowledge on it there as well. Any questions, pop them through, and look out for the next one. Thank you very much.